gist of the statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Tony Endene. Ladies and gentlemen, without waste of time, we will now allow you, members of the press, to ask clarity-seeking questions. They start from the introduction to the conclusion, even on issues of our achievements, failures, challenges. You are at liberty to ask. We will then allow you to introduce yourself, introduce the media outlet that you come from, then state your questions. We will allow for hands. Or the statement was straightforward. Maybe we can conclude our briefing. Oh, okay. You'll be number 1, number 2, number 3. We'll allow that first batch to ask for questions.
Well, good morning. My name is Ndebo. I'm with the SABC. I've got a few questions. Number 1, I've seen that the statement says talks about the increasing or the increased number of police that will be visible in the street. But it seems there hasn't been any sort of emphasis on the quality of police. I mean, we've got the number of police in South Africa, but despite having such a number, crime is still rampant because of the quality of the police that we're churning out of those training centers, especially when it comes to them being susceptible to bribes. And maybe secondly, there's a report that was released sometime yesterday by the presidency on the high-level panel in the state's security agency. I can see that almost 2 former ministers who were heading that department. The question is, were you aware of some of the machinations at the SSA, the political interference or the abuse thereof that was happening over the past decade or so, according to the statement or according to that report? And maybe finally, on the illegal immigrants. Is there anything that this subcommittee is contemplating to ensure that our borders are not as porous as they are?
Number 2.
Thank you so much. It's Gilbert Whittles from ANC. I have 3 questions. I see that the statement focuses a lot about the ANC's promises of crime and security in the country, but I'd like to focus on how the ANC plans to maintain or enhance the integrity of its crime fighting institutions. The first question is based on the report released by the SSA. Does the ANC support the State Security Agency Minister's call for the development of legislation to ban SSA operatives from working or conducting political parties? Secondly, former Minister David Madowo, the report states that while SSA Minister, you received secret money in cash sums. Is this correct? And what is your response to it? And under which section of South African legislation would you have been empowered to receive such funds? What were the for? And thirdly, to Police Minister Taylor, the former IPF boss, Robert McBride, has said in interviews that they have investigated the planned prosecution of at least 10 generals in the South African Police Services. Is currently at an advanced stage. He described the senior leadership of the SAPS as being in a state of crisis. What is the ANC's response to this? Then lastly, the Inquadro overseas with veterans met with the ANC's top 6 to discuss the impasse between policemen and the former head of the country. What is the ANC's position regarding that impasse? Thank you.
No. Your last question, just give him a mic again to give us the last question on MK.
As far as I understand, the MK veterans met with the ANC's top 6 to discuss the impasse
Number 3 was here, that Tsotis.
My question is from the legal question, so
Okay. We'll then allow members of the panel to respond to specific questions. You are at liberty, members of the panel, to answer. We're not going to restrict you. Okay.
Can we ask Ngozi to deal with the first question on quality of police training?
Yes, we'll allow Comrade Begicele to deal with that, the issues which are related to policy. Over to you, Comrade Begicele. You can come here. You come to the podium for cameras.
No, thanks, Chairperson, the media fraternity. The first question would be, you hear nothing about the quality, it's only the quantity that is there. The quantity of the South African police is not there, SAPC. The international, according to the United Nations norm, the ratio of policing should be 1:220. In South Africa, we are 1:383. We're almost doubled. So we need to deal with the quantity, the numbers. It is on that score that we have increased the intake at the present moment. Going forward, we'll be doing so. Last year, we had 3,700 passers out. This year, the intake is 5,000, dealing with the quantity. The biggest portion of policing that is accepted internationally is a visibility. So if you don't have numbers, your visibility will be compromised. And 100 and 500,000 at the present moment. As I've said, the ratio becomes 1:383 instead of 1:220. So we must work on the quantity. I hope we understand and agree on that. On the quality side, as we speak, policy is going to the extra training of creating more academies. In the colleges we have, there are colleges that are being dedicated to train the investigators and detectives per se, after they've passed their basics in the normal college. But also is to sharpen the elite units within the South Africans. One of those are your Hawks. I'm glad to say today, out of 9 provinces, we have employed 7 permanent heads of Hawks in the provinces. But as we talk this month, today, if I'm not mistaken, is the 10th. From the 1st of this month, we have already added 205 new elements and new skills within the Hawks, which enhances and strengthening the better working of the Hawks. And one thing that we're supposed to work at the present moment, Hawks are 2,427. The OD, the structure, needs 5,000. So we're moving towards doing that. And as an ANC, dealing with the crime, we'll be doing those things for going forward. So that will be your qualitative growth and your quantitative growth. So I hope I have answered that question. The question of the Comrade McBride, I haven't spoken about this matter and I'm not about to speak about it. It's more of a government matter. If I'm not mistaken, there have been quite several interviews on the matter, and you have not seen one from me, and you are not about to see one. That's deliberate. I've been invited by your houses many a times, both the SABC and the NCA, and I thought it would be a good matter if it is dealt with internally. But the question, if you go to the individual, of which I don't want to talk about, there is an institution called IPID, and that institution there will continue to do its work. At the present moment, it's got an acting head, and I'm pleased to report that I've already met the leadership, and they have dedicated, they've committed to work with the acting head of IPAD going forward. They've briefed the portfolio committee already under the present leadership. We are going forward on the matter as working with the structure. But basically, there was no removal of the head. There was absolutely no removal of the head. What happened? The contract expired, and the contract was not renewed. So for that, I will end there. You link that with the almost 10 generals that are being investigated. By the way, that's a call we are making, NCA, that it doesn't matter who you are. If you are corrupt or there are suspicions of corruption, you must be investigated and put to the proper processes. What I would have a bit of a discomfort is when it takes a year dealing with allegations but not taking people to court. To me, it does give a little bit of discomfort. Instead of putting people to processes, go to the court, found guilty, arrested, you hang the people to the public opinion for far too long. That will be a process to me. If people are corrupt, put them on the processes, arrest them, and make sure that they go to prison. These alleged corrupt top 10 generals, if they are corrupt and when they are found, are not going to survive. Are not going to survive the way going forward. By the way, the police, there are many police officers at the top level that are arrested by the police themselves, even before they are arrested by the IPID. There are those that are in court, especially with the blue light, while the IPID has come on board. But the people who started dealing with that matter is the leadership of the South African police. So I want to make sure that the South Africans should not have a problem, that the investigation of those people that are alleged to be corrupt will be taken forward. The only call we make, please put them on processes, put them in prison. Don't take a year to hang them there, having not put them to processes to go to prison. So we'll forever support that at all levels in CA. There's a famous 2 arrests that happened recently in Western Cape, where 2 members of the anti-gang unit, instead of arresting people, they got there, they stole 15,000. It's not IPID that arrested those, are the South African police who arrested those. So we'll forever help and work together on these matters of corruption. And will never and shall never, under no circumstances, to protect the corrupt members of the South African police. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Comrade Dakota and Comrade Tony. And to the other comrades. The question that is asked by Teko. Thank you. With respect to the high-level panel, we as a subcommittee of the ANC on peace and stability, we have made a call and we are supporting the president and the ANC government in ensuring that we bring confidence into public institutions, including the SOEs. The work that the president has commissioned with government with respect of restoring confidence and integrity on state security, the police, SARS, your NPA, is supported by this subcommittee. Therefore, the report that you have seen being released yesterday, we have an unequivocal support as the ANC, and we are very happy that that institution is allowed an opportunity, because when the president set up the terms of reference, he had issues that he wanted to look at so that to strengthen the institutions. Where there is wrongdoing, recommendations are very clear what needs to be done. But more importantly, we are very pleased by the members of the ANC who participated in various commissions, including in the SSA panel, who participated and helped them in the work that they were doing. Gavin, I will not go into instances where you want us to talk about names. The report does not mention names. Therefore, any attempt to try to assume this and assume that will not venture into that. The most important thing is that the ANC support the work. Is not the only institution. There are other institutions that government is looking at.
Well, first one, obviously, naturally,
Discharge their responsibility. There have been weaknesses and in certain instances being compromised. We will await government to look at the report as the president has said, including the other reports, and then they will have to do the implementation of the thing that they need to say, whether they are legislative review, whether it's about systems and control, or further work, or even bringing people into to account for certain consequences. That's where the ANC subcommittee stands in terms of the work that the president continues to do, and he enjoys our full support as this particular commission and the NEC, so that the ANC will be able to continue to discharge its mandate to the people of the Republic. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe just I want to respond to the issue of immigrants. Maybe just in line with what we said, that we are not coming here to discuss government things, we are coming here to discuss what is the promise of the African National Congress. But it's just as a matter of record that when we are deployed in any environment, when we find something wrong or illegal, we stop it. We can end there at this stage. But the matter which has been raised here is that of illegal immigrants versus our porous border. I'm doing this in consultation with my colleagues who are working with, because we are working as a cluster of the ANC in dealing with these matters. What we can assure the South Africans, both urban and rural, because they are affected by these things, that as the ANC government will deal with illegal and undocumented migrants in as far as affects the security of the country. If you look at our manifesto on page 52, it says we'll take tough measures against undocumented migrants involved in criminal activities in the country or in cross-border crimes, including those involved in illegal trading and selling of adulterated food in townships and villages. So our commitment is there in protecting all the people who live in South Africa against illegal activities. If you have followed also the president on the January 8, when he was outlining what are the plans for this year, he said we must engage our neighbors because they can assist us to deal with this phenomena of illegal migration. As you may know, a couple of years ago we did what was Lesotho Special Project, which was concluded in 2017. And that project assisted us to deal with those Lesotho nationals who were in our country illegally, to help them with documentation. These were basically economic migrants. 94,000, almost 93,000 of those Basotho were processed through that process, and they were legalized through that process. In the same period, we are also dealing with a special dispensation for Zimbabweans who were here, which yielded over 180,000 people making application and being processed so that they can be in the country legally. We also had Angola's special permit to allow Angolans to come and work and come here legally. And in all this, we are trying to say, if you want to come to South Africa, come legally, and you'll be welcome as long as you comply with our laws and regulations. We have ports of entry, which is a formal control of people who come to South Africa, because they must come through the ports of entry. Just to give an example, over 42.5 million in the last financial year. There were over almost 43 million movements across our border, the bulk of which, only 11 were South African, and the bulk of which were foreign nationals, which proves that foreign nationals are welcome to come to South Africa legally and through our ports of entry. In relation to the issue of borderline, I hope my colleague, Minister of Defense, may add on this, and the Minister of Police, because we are working. There is another process of law which we as a cluster recommended the government of the ANC to process. The issue of coordination of our activities in terms of dealing with border issues is called Border Management Bill. The bill was passed by the National Assembly in June 2017. So there's been some issues which we are now asking our government to expedite so that that bill can be completed, so that it can start the implementation of that. In terms of the borderline, you will recall that that function was moved from police, transited to defense. We are grateful for the units of the defense force who have already been deployed in problematic areas of our borderline. As an example, you'll remember that a few years ago, the border between Mozambique and northern KwaZulu-Natal was very problematic. And since we have deployed those units of the SANDF, the crime has dropped drastically in that area. And we hope that as the National Defense Force, our National Defense Force get more resources, they'll be able to deploy more units in some of the identified areas where there are still problems. And that is it in short in terms of dealing with illegal migrants. I'd like to add also that we'd like to discourage South Africans from knowingly employing illegal, undocumented migrants. It just adds to our problems. It just adds to the police face when they are dealing with crime scenes or dealing with crimes. And we like to stress that we are not xenophobic. We welcome everyone to come through the front door, not through the back door. and come and exit also through the door, not through the window. That's what we stand for as ANC, and that's what we commit to our people, that will work with them to deal with this challenge of undocumented and illegal migrants. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Comrade Siabonga. Just as an addition, I know it's a big story from what Comrade David Makura said recently. We stand as the African National Congress to say that just like Comrade Siabonga said, everybody is welcome in our country so long as it comes through the proper channels of the law. To this regard, we respect the rule of law. But equally, everybody who comes to our country must not come to our country with an intention to do wrong things. Human trafficking, drugs, house robberies, cash heist, all these wrong criminal activities. We would not encourage anybody who comes to our country to do them, because that is wrong in terms of either a permit that you got, that is wrong in terms of either asylum seeking permit that you got, and all those particular things. Now, it needs to be known to all and sundry, be it a migrant from Africa, from Europe, from China, or anywhere in the world. We are not going to allow this government and country to be blackmailed into silence in the name of xenophobia. If you are here, be here at our behest. Respect our authorities, respect our institutions. We are also dealing with ourselves through commissions, through other things, to ensure that we renew our country. We will not allow it with any foreign national to want to do as they please, including undermining the rule of law and our institutions in the country. So we'll allow the second chance of clarity-seeking questions. If there are any hands, we can have the hands. Yeah. You'll be number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. In that order.
Türkmen Terzi from Turkish TR724. My question is in relation to immigration. You said, sirs, the foreigners or the immigrants is violating the laws. Also states increasingly violating the laws. For instance, the embassies doesn't give the service to foreigners. So this is against international law, Vienna law. Secondly, for instance, Turkish government is violating the Interpol and reporting more than 60,000 people. And many international media and international bodies reported that. What are you going to comment on this issue? Thank you.
Okay. They working. No, I understand, Chair, that the panel tried to answer them and the question on the report by the presidency, but I just wanted to know from the two former ministers whether they were aware of what was happening in the SSA, and that question hasn't been answered.
Lihana 23 from SABC, and pardon me for my ignorance. I'm still not convinced about the question pertaining to dealing with illegal immigrants, and I'm not being xenophobic, of those who are doing untoward things in the country. What is it, how can you give South Africans an assurance that this case will be dealt with? We are not going to see police vans parked at the drug places. It's known. Some of us, we can see these places outside where police would park a van and knowing very well that drugs are being sold, and you find out what's the role of the intelligence. If ordinary people can detect where drugs are sold, and yet police don't do no and police go there to get bribes? And second question, Minister Nasibu, I think you'll be going to Zimbabwe. Just to brief us as to your expectations of the visit, what is it going to be all about? Thank you.
Okay, let's go again. Just coming back to that question. I asked if the ANC supports the State Security Agency Minister's call for legislation to be developed to bar state security agents, employees or operatives from interacting with political parties. If there is no resolution, I would like to find out if the ANC believes, do you have a problem with SSA agents contacting and working with political parties, or is there nothing wrong with it? And secondly, I asked for the ANC position following that top 6 meeting with the controversies with veterans regarding the impasse between the police minister and the former head of IPED. Just want to check what the outcome of that meeting was.
Okay, no, thank you very much for the questions. I'll allow members of the panel to deal with questions as raised. We'll start with our chair, Comrade Tony again, to clarify on that particular matter as the chair of Peace and Stability Subcommittee.
Thank you. On the issue of the meeting between the top 6 and Mkhonto veterans, that matter has yet to come to the National Working Committee. The top 6 does interact with a number of people, members of the ANC, from time to time. And then thereafter, as the National Working Committee, we get a report, we interact with those reports, and then we make recommendations to the NEC. And then the NEC takes final decisions. At this point, we have not yet been informed by the officials, but I'm sure we have a National Working Committee meeting on Monday, tomorrow. Those issues will be tabled before us. What was the other issue again? I think I must stop there for now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Firstly, let me start by making a declaration that I have not as yet seen the report of the review panel of state security agencies. But there's a matter which keeps on arising as people are raising questions, which is that of interaction between agents, which is members of state security, with political parties. Allow me to put the matter to rest and clarify it. Because there's a bit of a confusion at times as to whether in fact there is interaction between agents and people in the party concerned, or the role of state agencies together with the police in securing events in the country. We have various coordinating structures. We have what is called, for instance, the National Intelligence Coordinating Committee, which is a committee which brings together the different intelligence services, your civilian intelligence services, your defense intelligence, and crime intelligence. This is where you come together, you exchange notes, you look at information which has come through, and then you process that information. That's one. Then you have what is called a net joins. Whenever there is an event, irrespective of which party will hold that event, whether it is an ANC event or a DA event, including concert. There was a concert here now in December. I don't remember the name. The Global Citizen Concert. The moment our state organs receive information that there is a big event which is coming, the net joints has a responsibility of coming together and start working together, plan for the security of that event and anticipate whatever problems may occur and counter those challenges. I just thought, because I've heard this, I've heard somebody, not outside here, saying, why is it that your services interact with political parties? It's not about interaction with political parties. And I've made this declaration that I'm not yet privy to the contents of the report of the panel, of the review panel. However, it is to be understood that if you are working in these organs, there is no way in which you can avoid doing certain things as part of your mandate. So that of coordinating intelligence, it will be through NICOC. And when you have national events, in fact, including provincial events, not just national events, if you have an event in a province, you will find that immediately the Provincial Joint Committee, chaired by the police and deputized by defense, will quickly come together to do a threat assessment of the event, but even go beyond that by making sure that they put measures in place to secure that event. And that happens not only in the instance where the ANC is going to have a national event. It goes way beyond the ANC, across all party lines, but also in all events, including, as I said, concerts. Then there's another matter raised, which is Zimbabwe. Yes, there is a binational commission with Zimbabwe, which it started already 2 days ago, in that the officials have started meeting. South Africans and Zimbabwean officials have been meeting, processing issues which must go to the binational commission. Tomorrow morning, ministers who are part of that binational commission will then receive reports from the officials, and these reports will then be escalated to the summit of the heads of state on Tuesday, and for them to be kept conversant with areas of cooperation. There are several agreements which we sign with different countries, and there are several agreements signed with Zimbabwe in our different sectors of work. So the purpose of having this BNC is really in the main to look at, one, some of the agreements which we have signed with Zimbabwe, and then you look at each one of the clusters, whether there is progress made, and when there is no progress, obviously then the heads of state put corrective measures in place and make whatever suggestion on how to unblock that process if there are blockages. So obviously, as part of defense, we will be part of that binational commission, and yes, we will have reports which we will submit to the commanders-in-chief in this instance about work which we are constantly doing with Zimbabwe. Same applies to the police. Police will also be giving a report. Home Affairs will be giving a report, and all other sectors will give reports. I'm just confining myself to the security cluster as things are. Now, I would imagine, which is one of the issues raised by Minister Cwele, that of the special dispensation we started in 2008-9 for Zimbabweans. I would imagine that the ministers, when they meet, and the heads of state will also be interested to hear what progress has been made, whether in fact there's been a review of that special dispensation, and if there has been a review of the special dispensation, what is the way forward in dealing with issues of undocumented migrants in South Africa? Thank you very much.
drugs and police, you are also allowed to ask about the judiciary. I have here Comrade Masuta. He has not even answered one question. So can we get something about the judiciary also, so that it is clear that he was at work? Comrade
Well, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the chair of the committee, Comrade Tony. He has explained the processes following the meeting between Umkhonto Wesizwe. By the way, he's a member of Umkhonto Wesizwe. I'm the member of Umkhonto Wesizwe. And I did not know about that meeting. I will know maybe when it comes. So it's not very representative because I'm the member. I'm also a member of the council of Umkhonto Wesizwe. And I know that people that went to the head office is a province. It's not a national structure. So for that, we'll wait to be processed, and we all hear and we take it from there. But the question from SAPC. Yeah. Are we not from SAPC? You are? Yeah. Right. Illegal immigrants. The member Twele tried to answer, and the speaking now. There's usually a confusion between Twele and Twele. You say illegal immigrants, you are not convinced, drugs, intelligence, and police with bribes. We forever invite that information to act on it, whether South Africans or immigrants, especially illegal immigrants working on these matters. It's true that there is an involvement of illegal immigrants on criminal activities. It could not be the drugs only and other criminal activities. As again, Siabonga spoke about the northern KZN, where there were a lot of crossing of the stolen and hijacked cars there from Gomehlabealingan and all that. Besides the meeting that we attended, I think, Minister of Defense last month with the President to Mozambique, the Minister of Police in the Republic of South Africa has met twice with the Minister of Police in Mozambique, dealing with the matters of the interest about the crossing and all, how to work on those matters. That will forever continue. Before, we also had a meeting with the Zambian Minister of Police. There is an outstanding meeting with the Zimbabwean to work on those things, whereas South Africans, whereas those nationalities will raise the matters. It's not only the drugs, as you say. One major problem that we've been facing is a cross-border crime on especially vehicles crossing the border to other countries. As I'm standing here, we're supposed to fetch about 300 of these cars from Malawi. I hope they did not go with the waters since there are floods there. But there are 300 that we're supposed to fetch. You raise the issue here of drugs, and I'm trying to expand and use where is intelligence. By the way, is one highly improved unit of the South African Police Intelligence under the leadership of General Jacobs. Last week, we busted 3 laboratories. Last week alone. 2 Gauteng and 1 was much bigger in KZN that we busted. 3 laboratories that people are producing here. We also busted the biggest, I'm sure you saw that one, Harding, where people, they bought the farm, 10 hectare farm, they built the factory there. That was the biggest ever. They had 2 machines that produces, one machine produces 16 Mandrake tablets in 2 seconds. In 2 seconds. These machines were 2. We busted that. And we have been really Western Cape with anti-gang and intelligence. We have the biggest busting. 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, we busted 1 million. These things, unfortunately, are not picked up. How the intelligence have gone through in doing good job. One thing that the intelligence has done is a reduction of cash heist. You don't even ask questions about the cash heist now. When there was a time in South Africa where the crime was one, your Boksburg bust of 2 trucks at every day. So we have pulled that. The major players on that has been the crime intelligence with other agencies. But even so, there is involvement of foreign nationals in it. The blast at Boksburg was done by a young man who's a qualified engineer from the neighboring country. He used his skills to do what. Fortunately, we have put him in here. I'm told that he cries every day missing his mom. Because he's a young boy. I told him that by the time he sees his mom, he would not differentiate between the mom and the grandmom. So he's going to stay here. But there are 2 from that country, not very far. They are both engineers. They're specializing in busting. So it's not just the drugs, it's across the board. And we are working hard on dealing with this question of the crime, either South African crime or South African criminals or the foreign national criminals as we deal with it. But one thing, closing this point, we shall not win if we don't work with communities. We shall not win. Hence, last Friday, we had almost 6,000 MBs in Western Cape, 16,000 mothers, and most of those mothers are those that have lost their children, sons, husbands, boyfriends, on the violence that is taking place there. We pulled together 6,000 to work with them. They give us a lot of information. We have serious returns in terms of arrest in Western Cape because we have pulled communities together, and that is something that we're doing in the country. CPFs are playing a crucial role, but other structures of the communities, because we are aware, and they give us crucial information. To show that, last week we went to Mamelodi. Last week, and people, they talk about one man, and after that meeting, we received a lot of statements from the community that has been terrorized all the time. Out of that process, tomorrow, 6 of those gangs that are terrorizing people from Mamelodi are appearing in court. It's the main one that is running around here. He went to one station, made a big interview, you entertain him, but he can't come to us. We want him. If he does another interview in that station, tell the station that they're doing it with an alleged criminal. We want that person. What happened and how it happened, between we involved the communities. So it's one big element of doing proper policing is to work with the communities. And with communities, we shall win. Thanks. Anyone?
No, thanks, Comrade Chair. Well, with the respect to the questions that you asked and Gavin, we have responded. We've responded that we reaffirm our support on the work that is done. It's part of the resolution of the ANC. What we have said, we are not going to be tempted instead of getting into speculations, inferences. Remember, you have the report yourselves. And the question you're trying to do, we want us to start to do inference on names that are not actually in the report. No. Allow me to respond, because remember, you own a question, we own the answers this side. Therefore, the other question about the position of the ANC is very clear. Where public institutions are not discharging their responsibilities, their weaknesses, we are supporting our president, that we are going to restore the integrity of those institutions, and a number of things are happening, investigations, whether from state capture, whether SARS Commission, PIC Commission, SSA panel, and you could see the nation of South Africa is starting to respond to say, this is the ANC we know. Where wrongdoings have happened, there is accountability, we are leaving no stone unturned. In other words, we are not only swatting the flies or hunting down the foxes, but those what we are actually doing. The issues of the recommendation that are coming from all the reports that are there, government is very determined to implement the recommendations. If given one of the recommendations is to do a legislative review, the comrades in government will do that. If it's about strengthening oversight, whether your joint committee on intelligence, standing committee on intelligence, whether it's the office of the Inspector General, those are the things that you must welcome, that they need to be done, because we want this institution to be responsive, to be able to discharge the mandate that the Constitution envisaged them to do. The question around the violation of international law, that allege that Joseph, you are making around the question of the Turkish embassy. If there are those instances that are happening, we'll be very pleased that those people that are here, whether they are from Turkey, let them actually interact with our government, depending in which provinces they are, so that those matters could be dealt with, because we will not be in a position to say the allegation is true or not true. But for South African government to be in a position to respond, we could be able to respond if they are given further information, especially the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. But if these are matters that are bordering on criminality and harassment, because the South African state has a responsibility to protect everybody that is here. When we are here within the territory of the Republic of South Africa, we have a responsibility to ensure that we are safe and secure. You can't be intimidated. And my comrades have spoken about instances where there are those that are here illegally, undocumented, getting involved in other activities. No person is allowed in our territory to engage in criminal activity, irrespective of your nationality. Therefore, those must be dealt with. But I'm very happy you've raised it. And if there are further details, let's liaise with those comrades. If not, we have our chair of the committee. We can whisper to him some of the details so that we can be able to urge our government to look at it. Thank you.
I thought I answered your question. I will answer it again. We must remember that the full report is still with the president. And there are processes within government to process those reports. That's my understanding. So we won't comment on it at this stage. The issue I want to respond to is my colleague there about the illegal immigrants, that we may not be having a capacity to process them at our foreign embassies. I'd like to assure you that as we have heard, His Excellency the President of the ANC and the President of the country assuring the nation that we should move towards e-visa system to avoid this manual processing of papers, so that people can contact the relevant authorities through electronic means and submission of biometric data, which is critical for the movement into South Africa. And that's a process we're engaged in to minimize the backlogs. Of course, in strategic embassies like Nigeria, India, we have deployed more officials, and also now we're processing issue of China to assist in processing of the applications and of the visas. But I'd like to state that the majority of countries, we don't require visas. As long as you got a valid passport and we can know in advance that you are coming. That's all what we require from you. The majority of countries, we don't require visas, including our neighbors. We don't require visas in all of these neighbors we have. And that's why I want to make sure that we interact with them and ensure that the citizens who are here, they are here legally. The operating word, we don't have a major problem with people who come to South Africa legally. Even those who may breach the law were able to handle them quickly. And what we are promising as an ANC, that will deal with illegal and undocumented migrants, because that's illegal in South Africa. It's against the law. And the issues of joint operations, and I'm very grateful to police and other departments who become part of those joint operations, targeting where the activities seem to be quite rife. And quite clearly, they are not about targeting certain communities, we're targeting criminal activities which may arise out of those activities. So I'd like to assure you, my friend, that we're not xenophobic. From the history where we come from, we'll never be xenophobic. We are part of the international instruments on how we treat issues of migration, and we abide by those. So I thought I should just give those and thank our colleagues who are involved in this joint operation, including. We must remember, as our chair has heard, what is the purpose of all these measures? As ANC, we want to grow our economy effectively. And that's why our theme says, let's grow South Africa together, as our chair said. Our purpose is also to assist those who are poorer from our communities, particularly small businesses and village economies, township economies, to make sure that they also got a fair competition so that they can thrive as businesses. And that's why if you look at our session of this book, I hope all of you have got this book there, because I always like to read from it. It's a public document. If you go on small businesses, it repeats what we are saying in the security class and the security session. Address illegal trading and selling of adulterous foods and penetration of big retail chains, stores as they undermine township and village economies and displace locally owned small retail stores and related services. And then it continues to this end. These are the actions we'll do. So, as our chair said, without security, there can be no thriving economy. We have to put these things so that we drive what is called inclusive economy, not the economy for few. So that's the purpose of our operations and support as a security cluster in making sure that we've got a sustainable economy that is growing and inclusive. I really like, maybe through you, Chair, if we can allow also my colleague to deal with issues, because this thing of immigration, as we said, we talk about ports of entry, we talk about DMA, but there's also issues of borderline. Yeah.
As Mama comes, I would like, after her, Comrade Masuta must come to the podium just to tell us, in terms of the judiciary, what are the commitments for the next 5 years.
Thank you very much once more, ladies and gentlemen from the media. And thank you, Minister Twele. Colleagues, I'm sure you are aware that for the past couple of years, not months, the JCPS cluster has been working on a bill called the Border Management Authority. Initially, it was called Border Management Agency, and people thought that we wanted to outsource the responsibility of border management. We now call it Authority. That was passed by Parliament. That has since been passed, by Cabinet. That has since been passed now by Parliament. And now we know that this bill is at the NCOP, obviously because it is a bill which should be passed by the National Council on Provinces. So we are awaiting the outcome of that process. But just to say that we have increased and tightened our collaboration as the different government departments were deployed on the borderline. I know that most of the time people will say, well, do you have enough personnel to deploy on the borderline? Yes, we do. Currently, there can never be enough. We have 15 companies out of 22 companies who are deployed on the borderline, and we've reached a point where we believe that we shouldn't be moaning about the numbers of companies, the numbers of warm bodies, boots on the ground you have on the borderline. We should now go beyond that and look at innovative ways, look at technology. For instance, South Africa is one of the big producers of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, and we are now looking into that we should not just be mourning the fact that we do not have resources to deploy more companies on the borderline, but we should use whatever it is available at our disposal. We think that through this, we will be able to win the war against illegal migration. We will be able to win the war against porous borders, because people will say it's porous borders. However, I do want to remind ourselves that there was a time when South Africa had borders which had electrical fence. And when we came into power, one of the decisions taken by ourselves, this new government, was that we should do away with electric fence on the borderline and find humane ways of conducting border control. And maybe some people say now we are victims of our own successes, we are victims of our democracy, but the truth of the matter is that we now are finding other ways of dealing with this issue. And I think even though people are still very unhappy with what is happening on the borderline between Hlabuyalingana, for instance, and Mozambique, but there's a lot of innovation in that area. There's a lot of creativity. There's a lot of collaboration between the various stakeholders who are working in that area. And one of those, I think, which is a success story for us, is the collaboration between our state organs, the police, army, defense force, etc., and the communities in that area. Because the communities now understand and appreciate that they should be eyes and ears of the state organs. And through that, we receive a lot of information. And this collaboration and cooperation with Mozambique by the police is also yielding results. And lastly, on the borderline, there is also what is called joint patrols. So you have the South African National Defence Force patrolling, but together with the armies of the neighboring countries. So in Mozambique on the borderline, there are areas where there's joint patrol with the Mozambicans. The same applies with the borderline across the Limpopo. There are areas where we are patrolling together with Zimbabweans. And that too has yielded results for both countries, because there's a lot of exchange of information, but also this is serving as a deterrent. Of course, there will be those who will slip away, but it's not as though nothing is being done. A lot of work is being done. And of course, it goes with a lot of planning. There's a lot of planning behind the scenes to try and deal with issues of people coming into the country illegally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma. Comrade Masuta, I will give over to you. After you, I will then give back to Comrade Begicele in his other capacity, just to tell us the forthcoming elections safe, is the country safe, so that we can be sure, because as the governing party, we govern everybody, both our members and the opposition, and everybody, and we need to make sure that everybody is safe in the boundaries and the territory of South Africa. Yeah, we want to cast our votes without any coercion or intimidation. Over to you, Comrade Masuta. You can come to the podium.
It's difficult to pick an angle when the media has not led you. But no, thanks, comrades, fellow panelists, and greetings once again to our beloved members of the media. Maybe I should start there and say that one of the things I think we should celebrate in the 25 years of democracy that has sustained so far is our ability to preserve media freedom, because it is through that one particular right that we have a highly conscientized society, I believe, that is conscious of what's going on and therefore can, with confidence, participate as in the civic activities of their own country, and to make informed choices. In December, on the 10th of December 2018, we celebrated 20 years of the signing by former President Nelson Mandela of this beautiful document, our Constitution, which I believe in everything we do necessarily has to be the point of departure. Because the Constitution itself says in Chapter 1, the founding provision, which by the way needs 75% to be amended, suggesting that it is at the core of the very constitutional order that we have created for ourselves. So if you look at the founding provisions of the Constitution, it says that nothing but nothing is valid if it is inconsistent with it. And of course goes on to enunciate the principle of rule of law, which then means that everything we do has to be within that parameter. So the question about the judiciary, I would approach it in the context of it being not the exclusive, but one of the very important pillars of sustaining, of preserving this kind of order, this kind of constitutional democracy that we've articulated. Of course, within the chapter itself that deals with the judiciary, it defines the kind of judiciary, the kind of ethos, the kind of institutional arrangements, and the composition, the makeup of the judiciary. And I must say that we're pleased that finally, on the 1st of April, we're confident that the very last of the 9 provinces will finally have its own dedicated High Court, with Mbombela coming to life. The High Court there. In 2016, we achieved Limpopo with all the challenges that we've had and we're dealing with. So that creates and complements the total picture of the kind of institutional arrangements that we've created. Now, there's been challenges that the 25 years path or road has presented, but I must say that largely one could argue with confidence that South Africa is at peace with itself, in part because in that constitution we created the necessary checks and balances. We created the institutional arrangement that would ensure that we're able to sustain and order a system where there is popular participation, where there is preservation and protection of fundamental rights, where we are able to respond to challenges as they present themselves. We've talked about gender-based violence, for example. We've talked about serious crime and corruption. We've had a problem with our institutions that have been compromised at times along the way, but because of the resilience, I think, of the constitutional order we've created, we're able from time to time to renew ourselves, of course with the support of the popular participation of our people, including and especially the role that the media plays. I think at the risk of giving an even longer speech, I should pause there. Thank you, Chair.
Comrade Bekele, just on elections. From there, we will be preparing to close officially. Okay, elections. Elections will be fine. Tell the nation. Okay. If you remember, we had the final registration. Was it last month?
Yeah, 26.
Yeah, final registration. It helped us a lot as the security structures to assess around it. What are the most serious threats around the elections? One is a non-opening on time of voting stations. Some not opening at all. We have the number. We have the number. We know where they are. We have analyzed the reasons. Most of this would be problem of non-service delivery, where people they come together and say we shall not vote in this place, which is not a typical security reason for people not doing it. So we're engaging then those departments as security cluster at the neck joints. We have a document now. It would be unfair to begin and brief you on that when we are here for this. But we have the documents that will follow. I must say that in terms of security measures per se, things don't look bleak and bad on security matters. You remember, you were there when KZN was really a hot, contested place. I think those things have balanced now. We've put all the structures that are supposed to be there. The police, the SNDF is supposed to be there, especially when extra SNDF is usually when there are extra unexpected problems. Your rain, your oil, they've got capacity of dealing with those things, the overflowing rivers and all that. It will have that capacity more than anybody else. The police, all units that are there in the police are there, including your crime intelligence, your SSA is there to work together with all of us. Already the deployment, according to our understanding of security measures, is done, and the responses. We are looking at those people that, besides the communities having their own reason, maybe of not registering and all that, those that were involved in criminal activities, even with the voting. There are quite several of them that we have picked up, those people that are going through the crime, because even if the community is saying that they don't want, because of there are security, because there are the issues of service delivery, you don't have any right to ban the station. You don't have that right. You don't have any right to block people going there. That becomes to be a criminal activity. So the agencies will have to act. We have quite a group of people coming from voting that we have picked up as the police, and that's the process of being tried and going forward. And those are the things that we'll be doing going forward. But as we stand here, we don't have any threat that could have been there maybe some years before when it comes to the elections. That does not mean that we must go and sleep. We are working on these matters on a daily basis. But when the time comes, we'll sit down and brief the media and brief South Africans exactly what will be stepped on these particular days, even giving the numbers where to respond, where there is a problem, with who do you talk and all that, and briefing the political parties. Maybe this thing of talking to political parties, it also come there, because others, they approach our structures, you still talk to them, but they should be formalized, the kind of briefing when the time comes. Bottom line at the present moment, we don't have any form of threats. It could be pocketed where the communities themselves, they rise, and we'll be working with all structures on there, especially COCTA and other structures, to make sure that we find the peaceful, where one of the most rights of South Africans should be defended, to go and vote. That's why we won't be kind to those people that block people to go and vote on the party. If you don't want to vote, we can't push you there, but we are not going to stop other people going there. We are not going to be kind to those people in terms of implementing the law to the latter. But for now, South Africans, I'm sure they must just relax. The situation is absolutely stabilized and stable when it comes towards the election. Come the 8th of May, South Africans will be given their right, and their right will be protected, if it needs be, with all the energy, the power, the law that is there to protect their right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Begitele. I'll now give over to the chair of the subcommittee, Comrade Tony Ongeni, to sweep. Then thereafter, I will officially come back to close the session.
Thank you, Comrade Dagota. Just to recap, the manifesto of the ANC is primarily based on the outcomes of our national conference. The mandate was given to the ANC by delegates in a national conference to move in the direction we're moving. So that manifesto, as you see it, emerges from that process. The ANC has given a very strong mandate to its government that on matters of crime and corruption, the government must act and must act firmly. All the institutions of government that are responsible for this activity must be seen to be acting. And then they must act firmly. Not only to pursue run-of-the-mill crimes and criminals, but also to target the big fishes, the untouchables. Comrade Beg has indicated that there's somebody around Gauteng who goes around boasting that the state can't do anything towards him. Those are the people that we want. Those are the people that we want to take down, the so-called untouchables, the big fishes. So the government has been instructed to deal with those issues. On illegal immigration, I think a lot has been said, and The only thing that Comrade Kwele didn't mention is that I want to touch, because there's been a very big outcry about pastors who own churches, and in those churches they abuse the churchgoers. There's a process that Comrade Kwele and his department are involved in, so that they can get to know who are these pastors, where do they come from, whether the activities are legal or not. So that's a matter that the government is pursuing and is dealing with, because our people have responded negatively to what they see happening. All sorts of abuses taking place in those so-called churches. So that matter is getting the attention of government. The final issue is what Comrade Kwele has raised about security of elections. We're happy to hear that the security services are ready to protect the elections and ensure that citizens vote freely, and that there are no security breaches on our way to this election, before, during, and after. The IEC cannot be breached by anyone and by anybody, both either from South Africa or from abroad. So I'm very happy to hear that, and South Africans must know that we are ready to go, and South Africa is ready to protect them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Tony, again, our chairperson. All of us, just as a reminder that this process, it's a process that we have started with ordinary South Africans throughout the country to consolidate our manifesto. So there are a number of subcommittees. We have started with economic development. We are now with peace and stability today. Others are still coming. But the message from peace and stability, it is very clear that all criminals, both of our nationality or foreign national, please be informed the honeymoon is over in this country. We can no longer allow ourselves to be cajoled and muzzled by criminals and thugs. We are now going to take control of our safety and security going forward. So nobody must blackmail us into silence, be it of the story of xenophobia or be it of whatever. Everybody must know if you are here at our behest. You must respect our constitution, our sovereignty, our integrity, our right to self-determination as a state. You can't come from anywhere else in the world and be a bully boy or a bully girl in this country. I think we are clear as the ANC to all our deployees, as they are seated here. We no longer take prisoners. We want to defend this country. We want to defend its sovereignty so that our children can have a future in this motherland. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the President of the African National Congress, Comrade Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, as well as the National Executive Committee, we want to take this opportunity to thank you very much for honoring our invitation for this particular engagement. We hope to see you in future on other engagement and series, but we are also ready from the African National Congress to join your programs as we build up to elections. We've seen a number of programs that have been developed by a number of broadcast houses. We have met with all of you, including the Editors Forum, as well as both the SABC and the E-News and other members of the SANEF, just as part of ensuring that we prepare for the forthcoming elections. We are also ready for your interviews as the ANC. We are also ready for your engagement. We will also accept your invitation if invited. Thank you very much. We hope all of you will go back home safely or either to your newsroom safely. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. That was well handled. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.